Hello Valava, I'm Monty Betham and I really appreciate you choosing Once a Warrior. With me today, one of the most gifted to ever wear the Warriors jumper, Sione Faumuina. How are you, man?
Hey Monty, good, thank you. And yourself?
Very good, my friend. Sione, how are you and what are you up to these days?
Mate, I'm good. Currently living in Rotorua. Young family, working, and just enjoying life.
What are you doing for a job, man?
So I'm a client manager. I work for a company called Ando. It's a nationwide company. Actually, it's a global company. So I just work and finding new business and looking after our existing customers.
Certainly, when I look back on your career, I feel somewhat very privileged to probably be in the best seat of the house to watch you cause absolute havoc a little bit like this.
A chance
here is Faumuina. He will score, Peter. This is fantastic.
Here comes the Faumuina. Sensational rugby leg at Ericsson.
Faumuina with a little chip, it may pay off for them. Well, that was unbelievable.
This tonight is razzle-dazzle. This tonight is just incredible. Here they go again. It is one-way traffic. And in goes Faumuina. Faumuina! He threw a pass, the like of which I haven't seen.
Faumuina with a dummy. Great ball back. Faumuina slips it to win. Faumuina, some magic. Faumuina makes a big bust.
Faumuina, they will not stop him.
Sione, how does that make you feel watching that back, man?
Well, it definitely brings back some awesome memories. Being in a position to not only play rugby league for a job, but to play it alongside some awesome dudes. It's just, get the warm fuzzies watching that.
Warm fuzzies. You've given so many fans over the years warm fuzzies, some iconic moments, probably their pass behind the head. 2003 Brisbane Broncos, we've just seen it. What were you thinking, man?
Man, look, to be honest, I didn't expect to receive the ball. I was just trailing. I think Torpy shot out of the line, as he always does. Forced an error, picked it up, gave it to Stacey, and I was like, okay, I'm just going to jog up, as I do. But then Stacey turned around and looped it back. And as he looped it back, I was like, okay, this is coming to me. But I also saw Ivan on the corner of my eye because I also saw two other Brisbane Broncos defenders, and I remember thinking, when I catch this, these guys are going to hammer me. So as soon as I caught it, I just threw it over the back of my head. Hoped and prayed, right? And it came off, and happy it came off, because if it didn't, I probably would have been playing for Glenora the following week.
What do you remember of that game in particular, 2003? Because for me, myself, I remember that was probably one of the first days we were at the Broncos ground, renowned home territory, hard to win, but they were chanting the Warriors' name. They had Warriors chants going up there. What do you remember from that game?
That there's so many Kiwis in Brisbane, same as you, just hearing the Warriors chants. I had a lot of family living in Brisbane as well. And then a funny story was, I wasn't penciled in to play, neither was Feka. And so the story, that how it goes, was that if it was raining, Feka was going to play. If it was sunny, I was going to play. And so the morning of the game, we're looking outside, open the curtain and like, oh, right?
But you got a bit of special attention early, I believe. What happened, man?
Well, it was in the second half. I think I took a hit up, and Andrew G, he got me right across the chops. I don't remember obviously what happened after that. I just remember sitting on the bench, and but one thing that I do remember was after the game, I saw the replay of the match, and I noticed how he got me as I was falling right across there. But what happened afterwards, when he got the ball, yourself, Villa, Jerry went after him like he had done something. Like obviously he smashed me across the chops, and even Rabs was mentioning in his commentary, saying, "Look, these guys have got a vendetta. They're coming up. They're going after Andrew G." And I remember watching that, thinking, "Man, that's what the brotherhood was like. You don't mess with us type mentality." We never ever vocally would come out and be like that. It was something that was just internally ingrained. And I know for me once, you know, you were voted the most feared player in the NRL not to pick a fight with. So when I step on the field with you, I'm like, I don't care, man. If you want to start something, we got this guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah. 2001, tip sheet. You were on the tip sheet. Didn't really read too much about you. Didn't even hear a lot about you until after the game when we lost 24-8. And I'm not talking about you on our side. It was you in the Canberra jumper. What do you remember of that day, and how much did you enjoy coming home and putting one on your countrymen?
It was surreal. I mentioned it to a few people. In all honesty, when I ran out for my debut against the Warriors, I felt like I was running out in the wrong jersey. You know, I ran out on Ericsson Stadium, and I was literally like, I should be on that side. Right? And then a few weeks later, you guys came to Canberra, and that's when I sort of got wind that the club was interested in bringing me back home. And so I remember I was like, okay. So that game in Manukau Oval, I scored a try, and I really wanted to showcase to Ando, okay, this is what I can do. I was still filthy that I didn't sign with the Warriors from the start.
Yeah.
Because in 1999 at the national tournament, I got player of the tournament, second row of the tournament, right? I was basically almost.
So what happened, man?
You tell me. I remember I was thinking to myself, man, like based on this national tournament, I'm the best 18-year-old in the country, but the club doesn't want me.
So how did that conversation go in terms of making it a done deal and you coming over from the Raiders to the Warriors?
Basically, they said, look, you know, we watched you and Motu the year before. We think that you'll add enormous value to our squad. You know, we want to bring you back home. And so when I found that out and my manager had told me, I had already mentally checked out of the Raiders.
Yeah.
Right? I was like, man, I want to go home. But there was a lot of things that needed to happen contractually. So I still had, because I had a clause in my contract that if I played a certain amount of games, it activated another year on my Raiders contract, which I had achieved. And so there was all this stuff that was going back and forth, and it went on for months. That's why I didn't join the squad till like the last week before Christmas, because I was just sitting in Wellington waiting for all this to finalise. And then when it finally got done, I remember I came up, went into the club, and I remember, I think, was it Mick or Ando or one of them said, we had to jump through a lot of hoops to get you here. We're glad you're here. And I was like, oh, cool, thank you.
Okay, so they did jump through a lot of the hoops, and in the end, it was worthwhile because we've seen the talent that you had, undeniable talent, God-given talent. But that wasn't the way Ando thought it was after your first training session. Your first training session with the Ando, a little conversation he had with you.
Yep, so we had I had my first skill session with the boys on the number one field. And honestly, I remember it like yesterday. We had just done this drill, passing and everything. And when we walk away to go grab the water, Ando comes up to me, he goes, mate, did you learn anything at the Raiders? And I was like, what? And he goes, did they teach you anything in the 2 years you were there? Yeah, obviously he was half joking, right?
Yeah.
But after the whole session, he did sort of explain it. Because Ando is a stickler for detail when it comes to the finer points of footy, with passing, tackle tech, you name it. So obviously that's what he meant. And so he's very, you know, elbows above the waist, you know, all that sort of stuff. And look, I credit Ando for a lot, especially during my career at the Warriors, for bringing the best out of me, purely because of what he taught me. Ando knew that I could throw a long ball, I could kick, I could do offloads. And so rather than say, don't do that again, this is what we need you to do, Ando goes, that's what you're good at, this is how we're going to make it better. So coming to the Warriors, I never had done drills about offloading. Remember that drill they used to do with the pads on either side and you run, bump and offload? I'm like, hey, are you telling us that you're teaching us how to offload? Okay, cool, let's do it, right? Yeah. So that's what Ando taught me was, do what you do, let's just make it better, right? So he really honed in on that. Whereas previously, you know, there were probably, when it comes to decision making of offloads, I probably wasn't the best at doing that. Maybe just little bits and pieces of my game when it came skill wise. But Ando really focused in on sort of harnessing that. And I think it wasn't until later I realised why he wanted me to come home, because of the makeup of our squad, you know, and that's what Ando was a genius at. He knew that, okay, this is the skill set of all my squad, this is what this player's good at, this is what this player's good at, now we just blend it together and this is what we're going to get. And he built a game plan and a training regime that complemented our squad.
Talk about the squad, young, poly boys, some old head Aussie boys. Who did you like when you first came to, and who did you find yourself being around a little bit more than else? You know, you spend a bit of time away.
You know, I gravitated towards the boys that lived out in West Auckland, because that's where I'm from. Took a while to warm up to Francis.
Talk to me about the one line King Francis Melly. Why is that?
Oh man, you know Franny is Franny, right? And when I first got to the club, I remember I used to say to Mots, I said, bro, is he joking or is he serious? Because I can't tell, like, you know.
Yep.
But once I got to know him, you know, we're best of friends even to this day.
Yeah.
When I first got to the club, I couldn't stand Torps.
Yeah.
Right? I thought he was arrogant. I thought he was this and that. That's like the first couple of weeks. I was like, this guy's a rude dude. Man. And hello, we ended up becoming best mates. There wasn't anyone within our squad that I like to think I didn't get on with. And we all got along well with each other. The banter, the competitiveness amongst each other. Yeah, we were all boys, but you know, once a skill game was put in, once a conditioning game was set, mate, I'm going to win. I'm going to beat you, right?
Well, it's funny you should mention that, conditioning games. Talk us about what it is exactly, so the people at home, so they understand what it is and why you flourished in them all.
Yeah, well, Ando loves conditioning games because it serves so many purposes. You know, for example, we'll take a skill that we've just done previously, fresh, and then we want to try and implement that under fatigue. And so conditioning games provides that environment to try and work on those skills under a fatigue setting. Franny against Henry, you know, me and Ali, like, you know, and Ando would always split the teams to make sure, right? And especially Francis and Henry, man, they would compete at everything and they would give it to each other after it, right? And that's what their conditioning games really provided, was the platform for us to express ourselves, work under fatigue, decision making under fatigue, and then also that competitiveness.
Okay, so let's go down to 2002. When I look back on the records, you weren't there for game one. You were there for the Knights game. Why weren't you there for game one?
So game one, I was named to play, but I didn't get to play. I played in round two. But 2002, I put down, you know, I think I was a bit complacent. I had come back from the Raiders. Here I am now back at home for my family and friends. And, you know, I was up and down. I think I played about 12 or 13 games in my first year at the Warriors. And so at the end of that season, after the grand final, which I didn't make the squad to play in the grand final, it sort of hit home after I had the meeting with Mick. It was like, he was basically said, hey man, like, we know you can do so much more. You know, we weren't overly impressed with what we saw this year, that sort of conversation. And that hit home for me. And so a lot of the boys at the end of that year went on to tour with the Kiwis. So now all that's left in pre-season is all us young bucks, right? And I really made it a goal of mine to really have a good pre-season. And then I think that's what really set the tone for me for that 2003 year, because I remember once I get an opportunity, once Ando gives me the shot again, I'm not gonna waste it. No. And so I think I made the game in round 3 or 4 against Manly, and I never got dropped again.
Yeah. I think it was Parramatta 2003. It was PJ Marsh who just went down with a neck injury. I got moved into hooker. That's when I really saw firsthand how deadly this left edge was, and in particular you. I remember I was in awe, just going, how did he do that? Was that one of the games when you started showing people who you were? Because, I mean, from me watching that, I was like, oh my gosh, it was unreal.
Yeah, no, it was. That Para game, there was that little sort of 15 minutes of where it's almost like everything I touched just came off, right?
That's when I was watching.
Yeah, because I remember the first one, I think it was the last, and you were at dummy half. Yeah. Rather than go open, you came to me, and I had the ball in the last.
It was too long a pass that way. It must have been this way.
And then I was like, oh, now what? I saw the fullback was already deep, so I put in a little chip. I think I regathered, gave it to Monty or something. We ended up scoring. I did a bit of another runaway, scored, did an offload and put someone else in and scored. And it just felt like everything was clicking. I think Para was ahead, and then we clawed our way back, and then it looked like we were going to carry on and win, but we ended up losing. And then in the change rooms, I remember Ando was saying stuff like, he was obviously filthy, but he said, Ali's not going to save us, right? Yeah. Ali's not going to come back and save us. And then he just said, looked over to me and goes, what he did tonight, as if Ali was here. So, yeah, exactly. And we lost, right? And so I think that was Ando's way of saying, hey, I had a decent game and we still lost. If Ali comes back, there's nothing going to change, because if he has a decent game, we're still going to lose. So that sort of stuck in my mind. And then the following week, I think I can't remember which league magazine, I was on the front cover and it said the new Ali, right? Yeah. And I remember, and the only reason I remember that is because my mum saw it, and then my mum brought it home and she goes, you're not the new Ali, you're Sione. And I'm like,
Yeah.
So, yeah.
If you look on Wikipedia, it's got you down for lock, second row, 5'8", centre. I mean, you might as well really just put you down for any position on the team. If there's ever going to be a perfect prototype that could play anywhere, I mean, it's you. What would you love to do most on the field? Because you're a guy who could do it all.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think I really thrived in the second row spot on the left edge purely because I had Torpy and Francis. My role was to be a ball player.
Who gave you that role? Was that something that you put on yourself, or was that what Ando told you?
That's what Ando gave to me, was to be a ball playing back rower. And so I took that and ran with it, right? Because my strength, I think, on that left edge was being able to read the play, be a ball player, was almost like a third ball player, and I loved analysing that aspect of the game and attack. For me, it was easy. I would look at the opposition's right edge and say, oh man, Torps has got this guy all day, right? So what I would do is call early ball and just feed it to Torps. Yeah. Right? If we play another team and I'm like, man, this winger keeps jamming, he's going to jam all the time. Franny knows to stay on his wing and I'll find him, right? And so, they knew how I played and I knew how they played.
When you've got a left edge of alphas, all equally as deadly as each other, how do you determine who does what? Were you pretty much the orchestrator then? And I know it's hard being the orchestrator when you've got Clinton Torpy there, because Clinton Torpy, he loves the hot call, which means he wants the ball in his hand every time.
Yeah. I think I was, but at the same time, the boys knew, Torps and Franny knew that if I was orchestrating, that it's going to hit one of them, right? It's to be patient, I will find them. But when Torps is calling that hot, just give it to him. Sometimes it would just be like that, but it's more so from analysing the game as it goes on. So for me, most teams would have red zone is try line to 20. There's no passing in there. Orange, you can do one pass, and then green zone, you're attacking. Yeah. My mindset was, mate, the whole field is green. The whole field is green. When it comes to that sort of decision making, when you're so ingrained in how your boys play, their skill set, their strengths and everything, you just know. And for me, for example, Stacey, obviously our team knows if Stacey's taking on the line, he needs an inside and outside runner, minimum, right? And so even though Stacey's running and I'm tired as, I have to push on his inside if I'm there, because he needs an inside runner. Same with Ali. If Ali's got the ball, the nearest 5 people, 6 people, just be prepared. Yeah. Okay, it could come to you, right? If Torpy's getting the ball, 9 times out of 10, he's got to get an arm free. It's those sorts of things that our squad was really good at, and identifying everyone.
This left edge was world class with the ball in attack. But you know what? This left edge was world class defensively, and you were all mongrels.
Torpy is just aggro. Torpy is just an angry guy, and so all Ando did was, hey, be angry like this. Yeah. Okay. And so when you've got someone like Torpy on your outside, and then you've got someone like Francis on his outside who's putting guys into the second bloody stand, right? that does something for me. I'm like, man, I can't be the weak link in this, you know. So you rise, and that's what happened with me when I defended next to Torps. I was like, it's like I grew an extra shoulder. It's like I grew extra strength, because knowing that this guy, when we go into contact, he's gonna give it. He's gonna give it his all. So I would better try and give it my all.
Most memorable games for you, Sione?
Most memorable game will have to be that Bulldogs semi-final over in Sydney, at Sydney Showgrounds.
Francis scores 5 tries.
You
ripped them apart.
Tries. Yeah, it was just, everything just clicked. The atmosphere was great. It was our playoff game. It was a full packed stadium with all our supporters. And what we could do as a team, I believe we showcased every aspect of it in that game. If there's one more, probably 2005, Simon's game, his debut game, where we wore our 10-year anniversary jersey. That was just memorable, because I remember thinking to myself, wow, man, like, this jersey, 10 years, it's, I remember watching the club when they first came in 95, and here we are 10 years later, and I'm a part of this game. And my uncle took my jersey.
Let's talk about Junior, who is Simon Mannering. Early on, you didn't think it was going to be so great, and there's a bit of jest with that, I must say.
Yeah, well, Ando is renowned for his talent scouting and talent spotting, and obviously he got Simon, who was had come from a rugby background. So he came up to Auckland, and he was staying with Francis, and he came and did his first training session, and I think the drill we were doing was a wrestling one. And he partnered up with me. And it was that one where you had to hold the ball, the attacker held the ball, and the defender has to hold on to you. So the defender has to hold on to you for 5 seconds. I had the ball, and Simon was coming up first, trying to hold on to me. He couldn't hold on to me for 5 seconds. He had another go, threw him off after 2 seconds, had another go. Then we swapped, and then I held on to him. He couldn't wriggle me out. And then I remember thinking, because as I was throwing him off, I remember thinking to myself, hey, this guy's useless. Like, who the hell's this? Like, I remember thinking, man, are you sure? Like,
what do you think of him now in his career, man?
He's one of the greats of our club. He's definitely, as I played more and more with Simon, obviously I played in his debut game and saw him grow into the player that he was, the legend that he is. He's, he just grew into it. He was raw when he first came, and then he left a legend, and he is in probably my top 2 as one of the greatest players of the Warriors.
It's amazing to have that privilege to play alongside them, but to also have these relationships further on. In terms of those relationships, who do you still hang out with, and who do you chat with?
Yep, so I still chat with Ali. I actually just spoke to him before I got here. Henry, who lives in Tauranga now. Francis, Torps. It's always good to try and catch up. Obviously, due to COVID, we weren't able to do any sort of our old boys things, but hopefully, we can catch up again this year.
Sione, once a Warrior, always a Warrior. You were one of the absolute most gifted that I had the pleasure to play alongside, and also you gave us some iconic moments, man. Thank you for that.
Thanks, Monty. It's my pleasure.
I'm Monty Betham. I will see you next week for another episode of Once a Warrior.
Here is Faumuina. He will score, Peter. This is fantastic.
It comes to Faumuina. Sensational rugby leg at Ericsson.
Faumuina with a little chip, it may pay off for them. Well, that was unbelievable.
This tonight is razzle-dazzle. This tonight is just incredible. Here they go again. It is one-way traffic, and in goes Faumuina. Faumuina, he threw a pass, the like of which I haven't seen.
Faumuina with a dummy. Great ball back. Faumuina slips it to Webb. Faumuina, some magic. Faumuina makes a big bust.
Faumuina, they will not stop him.